What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today, I'm very excited to bring you my full review of the Vero Engineering Synapse XL. What we're going to be doing today is going through the specs for the knife. I will do some size comparisons for both length and profile thickness so you have a good idea how this is going to carry. Then I will go through my thoughts and impressions of the knife. And wrapping up, I'll give any type of alternative recommendations that I may have. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the Vero Engineering Synapse XL has a 3.85 inch M390 blade steel, 5-inch handles. My particular variant is titanium bolstered with in-cut red carbon fiber. Overall length 8.85 inches, weighing in at a claimed, I couldn't find weight. I weighed it myself, came in at 5.6 ounces. Let's see how consistent this will weigh out. So there you can see it came in at 5.7. When I did this originally, I had that it came in at 5.6, so it's actually 5.7 ounces. So I'll have to update my notes. What we're going to do next is go ahead and jump into some size comparison. I will bring out some knives, lay them out so you can get an idea just the scale of this particular knife, and then we'll go ahead and pick it up and do some thickness comparison so you can get a really good idea how it's going to feel in hand, how it's going to carry in pocket. Going to change up a little bit to my size comparison knives just because I want to make sure I have a nice variety of knives for folks to reference too. So first up, we're going to bring out the Demco AD 20.5. We're going to line them up pivot to pivot, and I'm using the Shark's Foot, which is their variant of the Wharncliffe. Next, we're going to go ahead and bring out the Spyderco Shaman, which is another large knife that I have in my inventory. I am bringing out the Blade HQ exclusive without these skinny scales so that you have a nice idea of how it'll compare to the factory scales that are more contoured like this. Let's go ahead and get these out of the way first. And then while I'm putting these away, we will talk about the fact that we're going to bring out these crossbar lock knives that I have to compare it to as well. First up, we're going to bring out the Benchmade Bug Out. Again, lining these up pivot to pivot for size reference. And the Hogue Sig K320, which is another full-size knife that I have in my inventory. And hopefully you can tell this is a much larger knife, much larger than anything I think I pretty much have, which is going to present a little bit of a challenge when it comes to alternative recommendations. Last but not least, we'll bring out the budget knives. First, I'm bringing out the Kubi KU321, thinking about replacing this one with another budget alternative, something a little bit newer that is still real budget friendly. And we'll also bring out the Buck 110, lining it up pivot to pivot. I know it's probably a little bit hard to tell, or maybe it's not, but you do have more butt and tip. So if I bring it to try to look over the camera, line it up heel to heel, you can tell the Synapse XL is much larger. All right, let's go ahead and move this out of the way, and what we'll do is some thickness profile comparison so you can get an idea of how it's going to fit in hand and in pocket. So there you go. You'll see it is the same thickness as the Kubi KU321, which is pretty impressive. We'll bring out the Bug Out, which should be much thinner. And then since this is the large knife, let's go ahead and bring out the Shaman instead of the Demco. And you can see they're about the same thickness. All right, so this knife here, my thoughts on it, it is really cool. So I've had the regular Synapse, which was just a little bit too small, even though it was about the same size as the Bug Out in hand. It was just a little bit too small for me. I wanted to get the XL. I knew from having the regular Synapse that I would not be interested at all in the Mini. I have the Rockwall, which it would not replace. Like, the Rockwall is probably my favorite knife that is about that size, that under 3-inch size that I have, followed probably by the Drop Bear and then probably the Sage 5 for under 3-inch knives that I own. I think that about covers it. Maybe the Banter. I would probably put the Banter up there with the Drop Bear. Those are pretty equal to me. The action on this is very smooth, really nice, smooth. I wouldn't call it guillotine, but I would say it is near guillotine. I think if I didn't have to move the knife and I was able to put it up and it just completely closed shut on its own, that would to me would equate to being guillotine. The flipper tab, even though it's discreet and hidden, it has nice jimping on it. You can see it goes right out to the edge, doesn't completely wrap around, but you can easily catch that for the light switch. It does have the fuller for the reverse. Oops, if I can get my finger in there, I totally missed, I hit the blade. As long as you get your finger in there, the reverse flick action is really nice. And the carbon fiber doesn't completely bolster the lock, but it gets up there pretty good to where you can. So really, really nice action on this knife. Really happy. No side-to-side play whatsoever. It does have the integrated stop pins in it, which really, to me, I think make this lockup so secure and so solid. It actually has very impressive geometry for such a big knife. It is not really overly thick, has a nice tall flat grind. The M390 by Bestech seems to be treated pretty well. I mean, I've just tested it on some cardboard. I tested it on some paper initially. It had a very good edge when it came to me. I hadn't stropped it or anything. I'm not quite sure how much it was actually used prior to my purchase of this on the secondary market. There was at least 2 prior owners. I had never seen prior to this model the in-cut carbon fiber made out of red. And it actually says it on the card. It says red carbon fiber, so it came from Vero like this. So I'm not sure if this was a special run or something that he had done specifically. You can see here this is number 252. I actually don't really care for the in-cut red carbon fiber. I already have some other materials that I'm going to use to have scales made if I don't try to do it myself. I haven't gotten everything that I need to do it myself, and I'm kind of a little impatient. I want to get it done quickly, so I'm probably going to do that. Pocket clip from Vero, not really my favorite. I think if he could chamfer that or have Bestech chamfer that down a little bit, it probably wouldn't be so bad. It's just a little pokey in hand, and where it lands for me doesn't really give the best vibes ergonomically. This large scallop section here makes it really easy to choke back if you need to do some chopping, food prep, things of that nature. And then you still can get 2 fingers in there, which helps keep the knife from moving around, and get up on this flat section to really get up close for push cuts. And then because it is a larger knife, smaller hands than what I have, it might be a little bit harder to get out to the tip to do some detailed work. But it's not that bad, to be honest. Lockup on it looks pretty good. I would say we're looking at, let's actually look. Can we see with it closed? We're looking at about 40%. I don't know if you can tell. Oh, my light's really bright. Let's see. I don't know if it's going to come through on camera, but you're right about 40% of the lock bar engaging in. The lock bar is nested inside here, so even though the lock bar looks like it's at about 50%, it's actually just a little bit to the left of that. Access to the lock bar, because the knife is so large and it has such a good scallop section, is really easy to get to. It will fall onto your nail and nick it, so you just need to be very careful and mindful of that. I've tried to push in as much as I can, but it just completely misses. So be mindful of that. 2 means of deployment. I think even if you're a lefty with the bolster lock, the flipper tab's going to work really good. And then if you like the fuller, I think I was able, to deploy it with the thumb stud. Detent's a little light. I think I might try to tune that just a little bit. I actually would like to stiffen it up a little bit. Is my pivot backing out as I'm doing this video? Let's see here. No, maybe it was just because it had been sitting for a couple days before I decided to film this. I don't know. Alternative recommendations. This is a fairly pricey knife, even though it is a Bestech, even though it's very well done, and it's a little hard to get a hold of. Having said that, my alternative recommendations may not necessarily be the best alternative recommendations to make, because some of these are going to be a little hard to get a hold of. If you're on a budget and you like the experience of a premium titanium handle, but you want or are okay with a budgety steel. Well, it's not budgety. I would call it a premium budget steel. This one has 14C28N. That is going to be the Tucson TS270, which is going to get you really close to the size of this XL. A little bit shorter on each end, but I mean, that is really, really close. White Mountain Knives, go sign up for the notifications for this one. This one is worth owning even if you weren't really looking at this. You just like to watch the review. 110 bucks, 14C28N, done really, really well. I did add my own extended forward choil here, and I just need to clean it up a little bit there because I didn't realize I had nicked the outside here when I was doing that. Inside it's nice and smooth, but I'm able now to get my full finger in there without touching the edge of the blade. I did this anode job myself on the titanium. I think it came out really nice. For me personally, I like the blurple purple color. I have scraped the pocket clip. I can't help that. I carry the knife, and when I walk by stuff, sometimes I get a little close and I nick things, and I can't help that. That's on any of my knives. And then I also did drop it, unfortunately. Hand slip, it fell, nicked it up. I did try to put it back in the anode bath a little bit just to mask the color a little bit, just a little purple behind it so you can't hide it. But I use my knives. I don't know what I can say about that. I don't know if I really need to apologize for that. 110 bucks, White Mountain Knives. You can get 10% off if you use my code JD4EDC, and I'll link that down in the description. That is a nice alternative recommendation. If you would like a USA made blade, I'm going to tell you to either check out a Shaman, or if you really have the funds for it, go ahead and pick you up an Umanzan, because the Umanzan is going to get you right there. I mean, you just have a little bit more butt on the Vero, but your blade length, I mean, they're running neck and neck. It is very, 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 very close. And I will bring this over here. So again, I know it looks like it's a whole lot smaller, but it just has a shorter handle. Cutting edge is a little outdone by the Synapse, and the cutting edge is a little outdone by the Tonto on the Umanzan. So those are my alternative recommendations. Overall, I like this knife. The only thing I think I will do is probably stiffen up the detent just a little bit. It's a little light. As you saw a couple of times, I whiffed. I do like the guillotine, but I prefer a little bit of heavier of a detent and just a smooth closing action. So I will try to take the bolsters off, and then I'll try to just gently work this over a little bit to give it a little bit more strength. You want to do small movements when you tune these. You don't want to go too crazy because you don't want the lock bar jamming in and forcing itself into an early life expiration of lockup on the bar. So you just need to be very careful. A little bit is going to go a long way. Overall, very happy with the knife with the exception of the end-cut red carbon fiber, but I knew when I bought that it was like red end-cut carbon fiber, and I just really didn't love the way that came out. I don't think it looked very good. I think it would actually have looked better if they would have not in-cut it and they would have just gone in line, and then you would have had the red in there, kind of like what you saw in the Civivi Elementum button lock with the Damascus when it first came out. I think it kind of would have looked like that with more red in it. But once I feel like once I get my scales on here that I have set aside for this, it's gonna look choice, and I'll follow up with that in a future video. If you're interested in that, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications. Leave a like for this video for me. It helps me with YouTube, and I appreciate all the support. Links are in the description, not just to where you can go to Vero Engineering and sign up for alerts for this knife, because there's nothing available right now, but also other recommendations, tools, all that good stuff is down there. Check that out. I appreciate all the support from everyone that has already subscribed. You guys are awesome. Girls, you are awesome too. I don't know why I always preface it to guys. I know that I have both that watch the channel. Thank you. I appreciate the support. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.